Eli had been part of the human peace mission on the newly discovered planet for 3 months now. He had expected the alien civilization to be very different, and it was. The planet was unlike Earth in every way, with its twin moons and glowing forests. The air smelled strange, sweet, and heavy, as if the planet itself had its own unique personality. Eli was assigned to learn more about the alien species that inhabited this world. The inhabitants, a peaceful species called the Veridans, were humanoid with smooth skin that shimmered under the sunlight. Their skin was a deep blue, and their eyes glowed faintly with the light of the moons. They had delicate features and an elegance in their every movement that Eli found fascinating. But it was Zara, a young Veridan woman, who intrigued him the most. Zara was one of the first Veridans Eli met after arriving. She was tall and graceful, with hair that seemed to flow like liquid silver. She had been chosen to help the humans communicate with her people, and she spoke the universal language fluently, though her voice carried a melodic tone Eli had never heard before. Eli had been nervous at first. He wasn't sure how to act around someone so different, someone from another world. But Zara made him feel at ease. She was kind, patient, and had a quiet confidence about her that Eli admired. As they spent more time together, learning from each other and discussing their worlds, Eli found himself becoming more and more captivated by her. One day, after a long meeting discussing trade agreements between their people, Eli and Zara took a walk through the alien city. The buildings were unlike anything Eli had ever seen. Tall, shining structures made of some material that seemed to change color depending on the angle of the sun. The streets were wide, lined with glowing plants, and the air buzzed with the soft hum of alien machinery. Zara led Eli to a quiet garden at the edge of the city. The space was peaceful, with strange flowers that bloomed with a soft, shimmering light. They sat on a bench beneath a large, twisting tree that seemed to stretch endlessly toward the sky. Eli had been listening to Zara talk about her planet's history when he suddenly realized just how beautiful she was. Her blue skin caught the light just right, and the soft glow in her eyes made her seem even more otherworldly. Eli had never seen anyone like her before. Caught in the moment, he said without thinking, "You're lovely." The words slipped out before he could stop them, and immediately he felt his face go red. He hadn't meant to say it out loud. He had simply meant to compliment her intelligence, her calmness, but instead, the word lovely had escaped his lips. Zara paused, her eyes widening for a moment. Eli felt a knot tighten in his stomach. He knew that sometimes, in different cultures, words could mean more than they did in his own. Had he just insulted her? He couldn't be sure. But then, Zara's lips curled into a soft smile, and her cheeks flushed a faint shade of pink. It was the first time Eli had ever seen her blush, and it made his heart skip a beat. She turned her head slightly, looking away for a moment before meeting his gaze again. "Say it again," she said softly, her voice tinged with a hint of something Eli couldn't quite place. Her words caught him off guard. Say what again?" Eli asked, unsure of what she meant. Zara looked at him with a shy smile, the pink hue on her cheeks deepening. "You call me lovely," she said, her voice almost a whisper. "I'd like to hear it again, human." Eli blinked. He wasn't sure how to respond. It was strange to him. He had meant it as a simple compliment, but Zara's reaction made it seem like something more. Still, there was a sweetness in her voice that made him feel both flattered and nervous. "You're lovely, Zara," Eli said, his voice low and unsure. Zara smiled again, a little more openly this time, and Eli saw her eyes light up as if she had been waiting for the words. The tension between them was different now, lighter somehow. She seemed pleased, and Eli wasn't sure if it was just his imagination, but he could swear she looked a little happier than before. "Thank you, human," Zara replied, her tone soft, and there was something almost playful in her voice. "No one has ever said that to me before." Eli felt a sudden warmth spread through him at her words. He was surprised. He had never thought of Zara as someone who lacked praise or admiration. But maybe in her culture, the way she was treated was different from how humans interacted with each other. As they sat in the garden, the conversation shifted. Zara told Eli more about the Veridans, their customs, and their way of life. She spoke of their respect for nature, their connection to the planet, and how their species lived in harmony with the world around them. It was fascinating to Eli, and he listened intently, admiring her not just for her beauty, but for her intelligence and the way she carried herself. Yet, despite everything they talked about, there was something in the air between them now, a subtle change that Eli couldn't ignore. Every time he glanced at Zara, she was looking at him with a smile that made his heart race. Her gaze seemed warmer, more affectionate, and it made Eli feel both excited and confused. Was this more than just a friendly connection? He didn't know. Later that evening, as they walked back through the city to the human quarters, Eli couldn't help but feel that something had shifted. Zara's words, her reaction to his compliment, lingered in his mind. He had called her lovely by mistake, but the way she had responded made him wonder if it meant more to her than he had intended. As they reached the entrance to the human settlement, Zara stopped and turned to him. She smiled again, that same gentle, yet knowing smile. "Say it again, human," she said softly. Eli swallowed, his mind racing. He could feel his heart pounding in his chest, unsure of how to navigate this new feeling between them. Still, there was something so undeniable about Zara's presence, the way she made him feel. "Zara," he said slowly, his voice firm, "you are lovely." Her smile widened, and she simply nodded, as if she had been waiting to hear those words for a long time. "Thank you, Eli," she whispered, her voice soft and sincere as he watched her walk away. Eli couldn't help but feel a sense of excitement mixed with uncertainty. What did this mean? What had just happened? One thing was certain: his life on this planet would never be the same again. The days that followed Ellie's accidental compliment felt different. There was a subtle change in the way he and Zara interacted every time they met. There was a softness in her eyes, a warmth in her smile, and Eli, despite his attempts to remain professional, couldn't help but feel drawn to her more than ever. They spent a lot of time together, often walking through the alien city or sitting in quiet gardens, talking about their worlds. Zara shared more stories of her people, and Eli listened intently, fascinated by the Veridans' culture. One afternoon, as they sat on a large stone bench beneath the tall trees, Zara began explaining more about the Veridan way of life. "In our society," Zara started, "compliments are not given lightly. They are considered a deep form of respect. If someone calls another person lovely, it usually means something much more than just a simple word." Eli furrowed his brow, trying to understand. "So, when I said it, did I say something wrong?" Zara looked at him for a moment, her eyes soft. "No, you did not say anything wrong. In fact, it made me happy, but it is not something I hear often." She paused, her lips curling into a shy smile. "In Veridan culture, we do not speak such words unless we are truly close to someone." Eli blinked in surprise. He hadn't realized that his words had held so much weight. "I didn't know," he said quietly, feeling a little embarrassed. "I didn't mean to make things awkward." Zara laughed softly, shaking her head. "It was not awkward, human. It was just unexpected. You see, we value sincerity above all. Compliments come from the heart, not just the mouth. They are not said for mere politeness." She looked away for a moment, her expression thoughtful. "Perhaps that is why I was surprised when you said it." Eli found himself listening even more intently now. He had come to understand that the Veridans were a deeply thoughtful and careful people, far different from humans in how they viewed personal connections. As the sun began to set, casting an orange glow over the horizon, Eli and Zara continued their conversation. But now, it felt like something more was building between them. Every time Zara laughed, every time she smiled, Eli felt a strange pull in his chest. He wanted to know more about her culture, about everything that made her who she was. But there was also a sense of distance, despite their connection. Eli was aware of the differences between them, not just in terms of culture, but in the way their species viewed relationships. Humans, he knew, were much more open with their feelings. They expressed themselves freely, even if it sometimes made things complicated. Sarah, on the other hand, seemed to hold everything close to her chest, carefully choosing her words and actions. She wasn't like the humans he was used to, and that made everything feel more delicate, more fragile. A week later, the two of them found themselves in the Verdant Council chambers. Eli was there to observe, but Zara had insisted that he join her for a discussion on human-alien relations. She seemed eager to have him present, and he was curious to learn more about how the Verdants made decisions. The council chamber was a grand structure with tall columns and intricate carvings on the walls. The Verdants seated themselves in a circle, each one calm and composed. Zara sat beside Eli, her presence as graceful as always. She gave him a soft smile before the discussions began. As the meeting started, Eli listened carefully, trying to follow the conversation in the Verdant language. He didn't speak it fluently yet, but he could catch some words, and Zara was kind enough to translate for him. They discussed trade, technology sharing, and other matters of importance. The atmosphere was serious, but there was a quiet sense of respect that filled the room. During one break, Zara leaned closer to Eli, her voice soft. "Do you understand?" she asked, her eyes studying him closely. Eli nodded. "I understand some of it. I think you're talking about the trade agreements, right?" Zara smiled gently. "Yes, but there are other matters, too. Matters of trust and connection. Verdants value these things highly." Eli felt a little unsure of what she meant. Connection? Like, between people? She nodded. "Yes, exactly. Connection is not just about trade or alliances. It is about understanding, about knowing one another beyond words. It is rare for Verdants to form such bonds with outsiders." But her voice trailed off for a moment as she looked at him with a softness in her eyes that Eli couldn't quite place. "But," he asked. Zara looked away, her expression turning thoughtful. "But it is not impossible. It takes time and trust." Ellie's heart began to race. Was she implying that they could have some kind of bond, a deeper connection? He wasn't sure, but he couldn't deny that he felt something more than just friendship when he was around her. After the meeting, Zara led Eli through the garden once more. The air was cool now, and the twin moons shone brightly above them. The peaceful atmosphere of the garden felt comforting, and Eli felt more at ease than he had in days. "Zara," Eli began, unsure of how to continue, "I've been thinking about what you said, about compliments and connections." Zara looked up at him, her eyes curious. "Yes?" Eli paused for a moment, gathering his thoughts. I want to make sure I understand. I don't want to make things difficult between us. I don't want to say the wrong thing." Zara smiled at him, her eyes warm. "Eli, you don't have to worry about that. You have been nothing but kind to me." She paused, her expression softening. "Perhaps this is new for both of us. I do not know what the future holds, but I am willing to explore it with you." Her words were simple, but they sent a rush of warmth through Eli. He didn't know where things would go between them, but he was willing to find out. The thought of having a deeper connection with Zara, someone from a completely different world, seemed almost impossible, but in that moment, it felt right. They stood there together, beneath the twin moons, in a silence that spoke more than words ever could. Eli didn't need to say anything more. He had already said the most important thing. He cared for her, and maybe, just maybe, she felt the same way. As the days passed, Eli couldn't help but feel more drawn to Zara. The connection between them was undeniable, even if it wasn't yet defined. He couldn't deny the way her presence made him feel calm, how every glance from her made his heart beat a little faster. It wasn't just her beauty, though, that was striking. It was the way she spoke, the way she moved, the quiet strength in her personality that drew him. And Zara, too, seemed to feel something more. Their interactions had become more comfortable, more familiar. They shared stories of their respective worlds, Eli telling her about Earth's history, its wars, its triumphs, and its mistakes. Zara spoke of her people, their deep connection with nature, and the wisdom passed down from generations. She spoke of a peace that came from balance, from living in harmony with the land. But the more time they spent together, the more Eli realized just how much they had in common, despite their differences. Despite the vast distance between their worlds, they understood each other in ways that words could not explain. One evening, as they sat under the stars, Zara began to tell Eli about a tradition on her planet, a ritual where two people close to one another would share a moment of pure silence. It was said to bring them closer, to strengthen the bond they shared. Eli had been listening intently, but when Zara mentioned the word bond, he felt a sudden surge of emotion. He wasn't sure if it was the right moment to say something, but the words were already on his lips. "Zara," he said softly, his voice almost a whisper, I think we have a bond." Zara's eyes met his, and for a moment, she didn't say anything. She just looked at him, her expression unreadable. Eli felt his heart race, suddenly unsure of whether he had said the right thing. But then, slowly, she smiled. It was the kind of smile that reached her eyes, a smile that spoke of understanding and trust. She nodded gently. "I think so too, Eli," she replied, her voice steady but soft. "I have felt it for a while now." Eli felt a wave of relief wash over him. The uncertainty, the confusion he had felt before seemed to vanish in that moment. He realized that he wasn't alone in his feelings. Zara, despite the cultural differences, felt something too, and that realization made him feel lighter, as if the weight of the unknown had been lifted. They sat in silence for a while, just enjoying each other's company. The air was cool, and the stars above seemed to shine a little brighter that night. Zara leaned back slightly, her head resting on the stone bench they were sitting on, her eyes gazing up at the sky. "You know," she said, breaking the silence, "I never thought I would feel this way about someone from another world." Eli turned to look at her, his curiosity piqued. "What do you mean?" Zara sat up slightly, her expression thoughtful. "I have always known that Verdans and humans are different. Our cultures, our ways of thinking, they are not the same. But over the past few weeks, I have found myself wanting to know more about you, about your people. I never imagined I would feel this way. It's strange, but in a good way." Eli smiled. "I know exactly what you mean. When I first came here, I didn't think I would connect with anyone like this. But here we are." Zara's smile softened, and she turned her gaze back to the stars. For a moment, they both sat in quiet contemplation, as if processing the depth of their words, their feelings. The next few days passed in a blur of new experiences. Zara and Eli spent more time together walking through the alien forests, exploring hidden caves, and sitting under the glowing trees that illuminated the city at night. They continued to share stories, but now their conversations felt more personal, more intimate. Eli found himself laughing more often, especially at the way Zara would tease him about human customs. He loved her sense of humor, her ability to make light of situations that seemed serious. It made him feel comfortable around her, as if he could be himself without fear of judgment. One evening, they found themselves sitting by the edge of a large lake that stretched out beneath them, the surface of the water shimmering in the moonlight. Zara had told Eli about the significance of the lake in Verdan culture. It was said to be a place where people went to reflect, to find clarity in their hearts and minds. As they sat together in the quiet of the night, Eli felt the weight of the moment settle in. It wasn't just the beauty of the scene that took his breath away. It was the realization that, for the first time since arriving on this planet, he wasn't alone. Zara had become more than just a guide or a companion. She had become someone he truly cared about, someone he could see himself growing closer to with each passing day. "You know," Eli said, his voice barely above a whisper, "I never thought I'd find someone like you here." Zara turned her head toward him, her eyes soft in the moonlight. "Someone like me?" she asked, her voice filled with curiosity. Eli chuckled nervously. "Someone I could care for this much. Someone who makes everything feel so much clearer." Zara's lips parted in surprise, but she quickly regained her composure. Her gaze softened, and she nodded slowly. "I feel the same way, Eli. I never expected this, but it feels right." Eli felt a warmth spread through him at her words. In that moment, He knew that whatever happened next, whatever challenges they might face, this bond they shared would not fade. It was stronger than just a passing connection. It was something real. As the night wore on, they sat there by the lake, not needing to speak anymore. Their silence was comfortable, peaceful. It was a silence that spoke volumes, a silence filled with unspoken promises and shared understanding. Sarah eventually broke the silence, her voice soft but steady. "I'm glad you're here, Eli." Eli turned to her, his heart swelling with emotion. "I'm glad too, Sarah. I'm really glad." And as they sat there, under the stars and beside the shimmering lake, both of them knew that whatever the future held, they would face it together. The days on Verdun began to feel like a dream to Eli. Every day brought something new, whether it was an alien landscape to explore or a new discovery about the Verdun people. But amidst all the wonder of this new world, one thing kept Ellie's mind occupied. Sarah's feelings for her had only grown stronger. And though neither of them had said the words aloud, Eli was sure that Zara felt something similar. Their connection was deepening, not just with words but through their actions. The way they moved around each other, the way their eyes met and lingered just a little longer than necessary. It was clear to Eli that Zara was important to him in a way he couldn't ignore. Yet, there was also a feeling of tension in the air, a subtle unease that neither of them could quite name. Their bond, as strong as it felt, still had a layer of uncertainty. Eli didn't know what it meant for them, what a relationship between a human and a Verdun could even look like. There was still so much they didn't understand about each other's worlds. It wasn't just the cultural differences. It was also the politics. Both the humans and the Verduns had their own agendas. Eli, though part of the peace mission, had to remember that he was an ambassador, a representative of Earth. Zara, while she had become a guide and a friend to him, was also part of the Verdun Council, and her actions were influenced by her duties. One day, the tension that had been building finally came to a head. It was during a meeting between human and Verdun representatives, a discussion about resources and future alliances. Zara had invited Eli to sit in, and he had agreed. Though he was nervous, he didn't know what role he would play, but he hoped his presence would help strengthen the relationship between the two species. The meeting room was large, with high ceilings and walls adorned with intricate carvings that told the history of the Verdun people. The Verdun Council sat on one side of the room, and the human delegates sat on the other. Zara was there, of course, but her usual calm and confidence seemed strained today. Eli noticed that she kept glancing at him, as if unsure of how to behave. In front of the others, Eli sat quietly, listening to the discussions unfold. The Verduns spoke in their melodic language, and Zara translated for the humans. But there was a distance in her voice that Eli hadn't heard before. It wasn't the usual warmth and ease she used when they were alone. There was something cold about her tone, almost as if she were putting on a mask. The conversation quickly became heated, with both sides arguing over the terms of the resource exchange. Eli tried to stay out of the argument, but he could see the frustration in Zara's eyes. It was clear that the meeting was not going as smoothly as she had hoped, and it was equally clear that the strain was affecting the relationship. After the meeting, as the delegates filed out of the room, Eli stayed behind, watching Zara. She stood at the table, her hands resting on the edge, her posture tense. Eli could tell she was upset. "Zara?" he asked quietly, stepping forward. She looked up at him, her expression unreadable. "Eli," she said, her voice soft but distant. "I didn't expect things to go this way." Eli frowned. "What do you mean?" Zara sighed, running a hand through her silver hair. "The council. They have their own interests, and sometimes those interests are at odds with what we want. I don't know how to navigate this. I'm torn between my duty to my people and what I feel for you." Ellie's heart sank. He had known there were complications, but hearing Zara say it out loud made it real. There was a conflict inside her, and it wasn't just about their relationship, it was about the future of their worlds. "I understand," Eli said softly, "but I don't want to make things harder for you, Zara. I don't want to get in the way of your work." Zara shook her head quickly. No, it's not that. It's just, I don't know how to balance everything. My people are counting on me, but I don't want to lose what we have. It's confusing. Eli stepped closer, feeling the distance between them grow smaller. Zara, I don't want to lose this either. I've never felt this way about anyone before. I care about you, and I want to be here for you whatever that means. Zara looked at him, her eyes soft but conflicted. She opened her mouth to say something, but before she could, the sound of footsteps interrupted them. One of the Verdun council members appeared at the door, looking at them with a raised brow. "We're needed, Zara," the council member said, his voice cold. "The discussions must continue." Zara looked back at Eli, her expression pained. She gave him a small nod, then turned to follow the council member. "I'll be right there," she said, though her voice lacked its usual strength. As she left, Eli felt a heavy weight settle in his chest. He understood that Zara had responsibilities, but it was hard to watch her walk away like that, as if she were leaving a part of herself behind. He couldn't deny the tension that had built between them. He knew that their relationship was complicated, and it wasn't going to be easy to figure out. Later that night, Eli couldn't sleep. The words Zara had said echoed in his mind, and he found himself staring up at the ceiling of his quarters, feeling more uncertain than ever. What did he really want? What did Zara want? The next morning, Zara came to see him. She looked tired, her usual calm demeanor replaced by a quiet sadness. She didn't speak right away, but sat beside him on the bench in the garden, her hands resting in her lap. "I've been thinking about last night," she said finally, her voice soft, "and I realize I don't want to lose what we have. Eli, but I also need to figure out where my duty lies." Eli nodded, understanding the weight of her words. "I get it, Zara. I'm not asking you to choose between us and your people. I want to be part of your life, however that looks, even if it's hard." Zara smiled faintly. "I want that too, Eli. But we have to be careful. The future of both our worlds depends on this. We can't let personal feelings get in the way of our responsibilities." Eli reached out, gently taking her hand. "I'm here, Zara. Whatever happens, I'm here." Zara squeezed his hand, her eyes meeting his with a look of gratitude. "Thank you, Eli. I don't know what the future holds, but I'm glad you're here with me." And in that moment, Eli realized that even though their journey together might be difficult, he was willing to face whatever challenges came their way, because, despite the tension, despite the uncertainty, what they had was worth fighting for. The days after the council meeting were tense. Zara had become more distant, caught between her duties and her feelings for Eli. The political struggles on Verdun were becoming more complicated, and Zara had to stay focused. She knew the importance of maintaining the peace between their people, and that meant making difficult decisions. But every time she looked at Eli, she felt a deep longing to be closer, to not let go of what they had built. Eli, too, felt the growing tension. He understood the importance of Zara's work, and he didn't want to add to her burden. But he missed their easy conversations, the quiet moments they used to share in the gardens or under the stars. Now, everything seemed clouded by the looming pressure of the negotiations and the uncertainty about their future. Zara had insisted that they meet again, and Eli agreed. They needed to talk, to clear the air and figure out where they stood. It wasn't easy for either of them, but it felt necessary. They chose to meet in the quietest corner of the Verdun city, a place neither of them had visited before. The area was surrounded by tall, glowing trees that cast long shadows in the fading light of the afternoon. The air was cool, and the soft rustling of leaves provided a peaceful soundtrack to the silence between them. As Eli approached, he saw Zara already, waiting by a small pond. Her back was turned to him, her gaze fixed on the water. She looked beautiful as always, but there was an unreadable expression on her face, one that made Eli's heart ache. He stepped closer, careful not to disturb the moment. "Zara?" he called softly. Zara turned, her eyes meeting his. For a moment, there was no smile, no warmth in her gaze, just the cool, calm presence of someone carrying the weight of the world on her shoulders. She stepped toward him, her movements graceful. But there was a heaviness in her steps that Eli could sense. "I've been thinking a lot," Zara began, her voice quiet, almost hesitant, "about everything. About us." Eli nodded, his heart beating faster. He had been thinking about the same thing. The distance between them had been growing, and it hurt more than he expected. "I've been thinking about us too," he said, trying to keep his voice steady. "Zara, I care about you. I don't want to lose what we have." Zara's eyes softened slightly, but she didn't speak for a moment. She took a deep breath, as if gathering her thoughts. "I care about you too, Eli. But it's not that simple. My people, my responsibilities, they need me. I don't want to pull you into something you can't understand. My duty to Verdun is more important than anything, and I don't know if I can balance both." Eli felt a pang of disappointment but refused to let it show. He understood her conflict. It was hard for her, caught between two worlds, one where her duty lay, and another where her heart was beginning to grow. "I get it, Zara," he said gently, "but I'm not asking you to choose. I just want to be here for you, no matter what happens. I'll be here." Zara's eyes filled with uncertainty. "But what if being with me puts you in danger? What if my people don't accept this? We don't even know what the future holds, Eli." Eli stepped closer, feeling a wave of determination wash over him. "Zara, I'm willing to face whatever comes our way. I believe in what we have, and I believe in you. We're stronger together." Zara's expression softened, but there was still a shadow of doubt in her eyes. She turned toward the pond again, her hands clasped together in front of her. "I don't know if I'm ready to take that risk," she whispered, more to herself than to Eli. The silence stretched on, and Eli could feel the weight of her words settle in his chest. He knew that Zara was torn, but he also knew that love, or whatever this was between them, was worth fighting for. He couldn't give up now, not when he had just begun to understand the depth of his feelings for her. "Zara," he said softly, his voice firm but kind, "I don't want to rush you. I just want you to know that I'm not going anywhere. I'm here, and I believe in you. Whatever you decide, I'll support you." Zara finally turned to face him, her expression softening. "You're sure about that?" she asked, her voice filled with vulnerability. Eli nodded, his heart full of sincerity. "I'm sure. I care about you too much to walk away now." Zara's eyes searched his face, as if looking for some sign, some reassurance. Eli didn't know if she was looking for the right words, or if she was testing him, but he didn't hesitate. He stepped forward, closing the distance between them, and gently took her hand in his. "Zara, no matter what happens," Eli said, his voice steady, "I'll be with you. I'll stand by your side." Zara's gaze softened, and for the first time in days, Eli saw a glimmer of hope in her eyes. "I want that too," she whispered. They stood there in the quiet of the garden, the tension between them slowly beginning to fade. The weight of the world still hung over them, but in that moment, it felt like they were standing together, ready to face whatever came their way. "I'm afraid, Eli," Zara said quietly, "afraid of the unknown, afraid of what could happen to us." Eli squeezed her hand gently. "I'm afraid too, but I believe that if we face it together, we can make it work. We don't know what the future holds, but we can make our own path." Zara looked at him for a long moment, and then, slowly, a small smile tugged at the corners of her lips. It was a soft, hesitant smile, but it was a smile nonetheless. "Maybe you're right," she said softly. "Maybe we can make it work." Eli smiled back, feeling a sense of relief wash over him. For the first time in what felt like forever, there was hope between them. It wasn't going to be easy, but they had each other, and that was enough. Together, they walked back toward the Verdun city, hand in hand, ready to face the challenges ahead. Whatever the future held, Eli knew one thing for sure: he wasn't ready to give up on Zara. And as long as she was by his side, he would keep fighting for them, no matter what. The following days felt different for Eli and Zara. The tension that had once filled the space between them had begun to fade, replaced by a sense of shared understanding. There were still obstacles ahead, political challenges, cultural differences, and the uncertainty of their future, but there was also something stronger now. Something they both felt deeply but had yet to fully acknowledge: their bond. Zara had become more open with Eli, and in turn, Eli had found himself trusting her more than he ever thought possible. There was a quiet peace that now settled between them whenever they were together, a sense that they had found something worth fighting for. No matter how difficult the road ahead might be, they spent more time together, sharing stories, walking through the city, and sitting under the twin moons, finding comfort in each other's presence. Even on the days when the weight of their responsibilities felt too heavy to bear, they found solace in the simplicity of their connection. One evening, after a long day of meetings and discussions about trade and peace agreements, Eli and Zara found themselves once again sitting by the quiet pond they had visited before. The sky was painted with soft colors as the sun began to set, casting a golden light over the water's surface. Zara was sitting with her back to Eli, her legs crossed, and her hands resting gently in her lap. She seemed deep in thought, but Eli could tell there was a lightness about her that had been missing before. Zara turned to him, her face illuminated by the soft glow of the fading sunlight. "Eli," she said, her voice steady but gentle. "I've been thinking." Eli smiled, knowing that her thoughts were probably as complex as the world they lived in. "About what?" he asked. "About what comes next," Zara replied, her gaze turning back to the water. "We've spent so much time navigating the challenges of this planet, the politics, the customs. But I think it's time we start thinking about ourselves, about what we want." Ellie's heart skipped a beat. "What do you mean?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Zara met his gaze, her eyes full of sincerity and something else, something warmer, softer. "I've been so focused on my duty to Verdun, on keeping the peace between our worlds, that I've forgotten to think about what I need, what I want." Ellie's chest tightened as he realized what she was saying. He had known for some time that Zara had been torn between her responsibilities and her feelings for him. But now, it seemed that she was finally ready to make a decision about them. "I want to be with you, Eli," Zara said, her voice firm but tender. "I want to see where this goes, to see where we can go. But it's going to take time. We have to figure out how to balance everything, how to make it work." Eli felt a surge of relief and happiness wash over him. He had been waiting for this moment, waiting for Zara to finally let go of the doubts that had held her back. "I want that too," he said, his voice filled with emotion. "I don't know what the future holds, but I'm willing to face it. With you, together." Zara smiled, a smile that reached her eyes and made her look more at peace than she had in days. "We'll figure it out, Eli. We'll make it work." They sat together for a long time, watching as the stars began to appear in the sky. The night felt peaceful, as if the world itself was holding its breath in anticipation of what was to come. They didn't need to say anything else in that moment. They both knew that they had made a choice to build something real, something lasting, even in the face of all the uncertainty. The next few days were filled with changes. Zara, though still focused on her duties as a Verdun ambassador, had become more open about her feelings for Eli. She no longer hid her affection, no longer hesitated when their eyes met. Eli, too, had become more confident in his feelings. He no longer worried about whether he was doing the right thing. All he knew was that he wanted to be with Zara, no matter the challenges they faced. They continued to meet in the quiet corners of the city, taking time to be with each other. Away from the politics and the pressures of their worlds, they talked about their hopes and dreams, their fears and uncertainties, but most importantly, they talked about their future, what it might look like, what they wanted it to be. As the days passed, Eli and Zara began to realize that their bond was something that transcended their differences. It wasn't just about human and Verdun, it was about two people who had found something special in each other, something worth protecting. One evening, as they sat beneath the stars, Zara turned to Eli, her expression thoughtful. "Eli," she said softly, "I think we're ready to take the next step." Eli looked at her, unsure of what she meant. "What do you mean?" Zara reached out and took his hand, her touch gentle but firm. I mean that we're ready to show the world that this, she gestured between them, this is real. That our bond is real. Ellie's heart swelled with pride. You mean you want to make it official? Zara smiled, a playful glint in her eyes. Something like that. I don't want to hide anymore. We've already faced so much together. I think it's time we take a stand. Eli squeezed her hand, his heart full. I'm with you, Zara. I always will be. And so, together, they made the decision to be open about their relationship. They knew it wouldn't be easy. There would be challenges ahead, both from their own people and from the rest of the galaxy. But they also knew that their bond was stronger than any obstacle they might face. It was a bond built on trust, on respect, and on a love that neither of them had expected, but one they were both ready to embrace. The following day, Zara and Eli stood before the Verdant Council, holding hands, their faces calm but resolute. The room was quiet, the council members watching them with a mixture of curiosity and suspicion. Zara spoke first, her voice steady as she addressed the room. This is Eli, she said, her gaze never leaving his. He is a human, and he is important to me. Our relationship is real, and it will not be hidden any longer. There was silence in the room, the weight of her words hanging in the air. Eli stood by her side, his heart pounding, but he didn't look away. This was their moment, and they were ready for it. The council members exchanged looks, some nodding, some frowning, but none of them spoke. Zara turned to Eli, a quiet smile on her lips. He smiled back, his heart full of hope. They didn't know what the future held, but they knew one thing for sure: they were ready to face it together.